You can open the grain view in an individual window of its own by clicking the upper right corner of the grain view. That's useful to place the grain view where you want on your screen or on different monitors when you are using a multi-monitor setup, and of course you can change the window's size. All the following operations work also with the original grain view, but I'm going to demonstrate them with the enlarged grain view window. Working with the grain view, there are three mouse modes. The rotate mode, which allows you to rotate the graph freely around all axes. The move mode, which moves the whole graph without changing the angle of view. And the zoom mode, which lets you zoom in and zoom out. You can change between the modes by clicking the right mouse button, and you use the modes by clicking and holding the left mouse button. If there is a mouse wheel, you can use it to zoom in and zoom out, whichever mode is actually active. In the upper right corner of the grain view, you see a simplified depiction of the grain envelopes window type. More about the grain envelopes in a video later in this series. Under the depiction of the grain window, there is a small red number indicating the number of actually generated grains. And below that, you can see the actual CPU load. The grains are represented by the rectangles. The youngest ones, the ones having been generated most actually, are represented by the leftmost rectangles. The older ones are shown to the right of them. All in all, there are 4 generations of grains depicted. Sometimes, especially when there are a lot of active generators, the grain view looks like the grains were not generated at the same time. To see that all of the grains are indeed generated at the same time, it will be useful then to change the perspective. The length of the grains is shown by the length of the rectangles along the x-axis called the timeline. The birth of the grains is shown along this timeline too. The number of active generators is shown along the y-axis. Each layer of rectangles corresponds to one generator. The view can get quite crowded with a lot of generators active. The delay is shown along the z-axis called, of course, the delay axis. And something else is shown along the z-axis: the existence of sound in the buffer. In the lower left part of the grain view, right at the point of origin of the coordinates, you see a little circle showing the filling of the buffer, which every trigger impulse, whether auto or manual, or by level or by quantize, the circle gets newly filled, same as the buffer. To learn more about the buffer, please watch parts 3 and 4 of this series. Grains which are suppressed by the quantize function are depicted as rectangles without color. There will be a tutorial about the quantize function later in this series as well. Let's talk about how the bunch of vapor parameters is shown in the grain view. Speed. Speed is represented by the color of the rectangles. From -5 to -2, white. from -2 to -1 getting red, from -1 to +1 blue, from +1 to +2 getting white, from +2 to +5 white. Sweep. Sweep is represented by a colored plus or minus sign with the color showing the amount. From black to white, the higher the amount, the brighter the sign in the grain view. X-crush. X-crush is shown by an X and by emphasizing the region where the grains are overlapping. And again, the higher the amount of X-crush, the brighter the X and the borderlines of the overlapping regions. You cannot see either high amounts of sweep nor at all X-crush with a speed parameter lower than -2 or higher than +2, as the rectangles are white then, same as the sweep and X-crush signs. Overdrive. Overdrive is symbolized by a saw-like top border of the rectangles. The higher the amount of overdrive, the bigger are the saw teeth. The filter frequency. The filter frequency is represented by the brightness of the colors, with darker colors showing a lower frequency and brighter colors indicating a higher frequency. The filter Q. The filter Q is shown by a white horizontal line in the middle of the rectangles. The higher the amount of filter Q, the brighter the line. The volume. The volume is represented by the height of the rectangles. The louder, the higher the volume, the higher are the rectangles. What's left to say? Yes, the right, left, center arrangement of the grains. According to the adjusted surround mode, this arrangement is symbolized by the letters L, R and L plus R along the generator axis, as well as in every individual rectangle, with some additional letters according to the surround mode. More about the surround modes shall be shown and told about in an extra video later in this series. Thank you for watching. The next video in this series is going to be about the delay parameter. Please consider subscribing, liking and sharing, and enjoy your life.